The next slide. Wonderful. So we'll learn a little bit from Susan Silber, who I've learned a lot about resilience from. So we'll kind of get a framework primer from Susan, and then we will talk specifically about how we're weaving together the theme of resilience and building local community connections, how we're going to weave that into potlucks across the state this summer through Climate Health Now. And then we'll wrap up. So that's the plan. Next slide. So here at Climate Health Now, what we are working on, and we started in 2019, so it's a very different world in so many ways. But our mission is to organize and activate the California health community to advocate for equitable systems level climate action in the interest of health for all. And we define the health community really broadly. So, we have a lot of doctors and nurses and public health experts and some healthcare administrators, like people who run hospitals or like the sustainability programs at insurance companies, doulas, you name it. Anybody who feels like they're part of trying to protect health is who we invite to join us. And we have over 970 health community members across California, from San Diego to Arcata. And yeah, we're really trying to kind of, build relationships among each other to be able to work together to make change. And we also work kind of the community organizing side. We also work within our health facilities, like a lot of hospital work to advance healthcare sustainability there, because there's a lot of work needed there. And then we also do policy advocacy. So that's the big picture of what Climate Health Now is about. And I'm really excited to have Susan Silber speak to us, because like I said, I've learned a lot about resilience from Susan. We both live in the East Bay, and Susan's doing really awesome work around resilience. So she founded and is a program director of Collective Resilience, over 30 years of experience as a program creator, fundraiser, project manager, strategic planner, and educator, really all of the above. And she created or co-created the NorCal Resilience Network, so very relevant for today. Nature's Voices Project, climate action groups at the Ecology Center, which is a really cool center in Berkeley. The Green Star Schools program and the Green Schools Initiative, and hopefully we can talk more about that. And then she was a Peace Corps volunteer in Costa Rica, which is such a cool thing. I wish I would have done that. So we're glad to have you, Susan. Grateful for the work you're doing and excited to learn with you, from you, about resilience and how it works and how we can kind of, strengthen it in our communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Would love to hear, first of all, maybe you can put in the chat sort of your name and where you're calling from, and what does resilience look like to you? What does it mean to be resilient? So when we talk about resilience, community resilience, I like to refer to three different buckets, as you're seeing here. And the first is how we can make sure everybody thrives when we know that there's worsening extreme weather. We know that Black and Brown communities are hit first and worst by the climate crisis. So making sure that we are tending with community care to their needs. And then in the middle, so the nexus of climate mitigation, addressing the climate crisis, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, so that we're not feeding the fire as we're trying to adapt to climate change. And the third piece of community resilience is the community piece of how do we build our communities so that they're centering not fear and polarization like we see so much of today, but communities that are centered in caring and belonging and building trust with each other, and self-reliance, meaning that we can take care of ourselves. So that is sort of a defining equitable and community resilient communities. And seeing in the chat, Whitney saying, knowing your neighbor's needs, love that. Howard is saying, minimize damage from climate change, of course, fire, flood risk, preparing for disasters. Thank you. Next slide. So I know there's there's so much going on right now, and sometimes we just want to like bury our heads in the sand or just talk to our dog, be envious of our dogs. But we do need our self-care. At the same time, we know we have to face these challenges. Next slide. So at Collective Resilience, our focus has been on the sites in our communities, and I'll talk about them in a second, about the community spaces that we know and love, the place of worship, schools, communities, etc., and develop them as resilient hubs and spaces, and also connecting to the partners to help be able to do that. And we've done tons of different partnerships with governmental agencies and different nonprofits, community-based organizations, etc. Organizations like Climate Health Now. And again, you see those focuses of the disaster preparedness, the mitigation, the climate solutions, and community care and belonging, and centered in equity. Next slide. So what is a resilience hub? Thumbs up, or maybe in the chat, you can just share if you've heard that term, resilience hub, before. Yes, I know, Ashley, you have. Basically, it's looking at, like I was saying, those spaces that we know and love in our community, like the libraries, the community centers, the gardens, etc. And knowing that there's so much more that we need to prepare for when it comes to the climate crisis. So how can these sites serve the purpose of before, during, and after a disaster? They can do some of that work of emergency services, and as well support the community building, which is like super, super important. So across the country, these resilience hubs are popping up, with a library or community center. The one that I think is really, really a great model is on the right. You see the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center up in Santa Rosa. They have a huge solar battery backup. They have lots of different programs for community members around food sovereignty. They have a big community garden, et cetera. They're really a living, learning demonstration of community resilience. And we would love to see these resilience hubs everywhere. And the state of California is supporting resilience hubs to the tune of $55 million. They have a grant guidelines that just came out. And a couple years ago, they provided $100 million. So lots of states and cities are stepping up to support resilience hubs. Next slide. So as I shared, a resilience hub has 3 modes. The first is like, hopefully most of the time when there's not much, there's not an extreme disaster happening. So you're preparing for it. You've got your community services happening, relationship building, et cetera. And then when there is a sudden disruption, you're popping into resilience hub mode. And it could be a sudden disaster like an earthquake or fire, or, longer term, like we had COVID, or, extreme heat can last a couple of days. And then there's recovery, when the process of returning to everyday mode. And that could take days or years. So this is just a model, or just sharing what an ideal resilience hub could look like, with that, the solar on the rooftop, the battery backup, there's bike parking, hopefully there's transportation nearby, or public transit nearby, so it's accessible. And then there's water storage. Community spaces are super important, so that you can, having meetings. And then outside, oftentimes there's community gardens, shade trees, really centering nature-based solutions as well. So with this slide, thinking about this, the moment that we're in, and just the urgent need to think about community resilience. We know that Super El Nino is coming, and there could be a lot of disruptions when it comes to, or a lot more atmospheric rivers, much more extreme heat coming our way. And then there's food shortages, and with the war in Iran and just basic food, the climate crisis is exacerbating food shortages as well. This is a moment where not to mention the political crises happening, this is really a moment where we have to lean into community resilience. Next slide. So in terms of thinking about this moment and how a resilient hub, and as well as neighborhood groups responding to these challenges, a lot of sites are or could be opening up as cooling centers, for example. So, like a library or community center, when there is extreme heat, just opening their doors and providing resources for extreme heat, even like sunscreen. The second photo refers to neighborhood mapping, understanding in that neighborhood or in your own neighborhood, who are the vulnerable community members, first of all, that we need to be tending to. And then second of all, what are the assets in the community? Maybe when it comes to extreme heat, for example, the local pools, for example, or the shaded parks. So that's the asset mapping. And then the third, distributing food or distributing resources like water during a disruption like extreme heat. So that's how resilience hubs can and are responding. Next slide.
Susan, could we ask, does anybody know of a resilience hub or have engagement experience with any hubs around you? Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the idea is that some cities, some organizations are really focusing on sort of the costly infrastructure that needs to happen to develop a resilience hub, like solar with battery backup or earthquake retrofitting. But we really want to think about like what are some simple things that this site could be doing, like providing being a cooling center, or being providing having a food distribution there, or even just a map of where things are, information about extreme heat. So it doesn't have to be a ton of money, a ton of effort, just like what are simple things that these sites could be doing. Is the provider at the local city level? That's a really good question. If it's a public facility, then yes. And a lot of cities do have resilient hub networks. In the Bay Area, where I live, Berkeley used to have kind of sort of a resilience hub program. They don't anymore. And the city of Oakland has developing one to the tune of $40 million. I really am trying to work with them to provide this idea of a network. So, and sometimes they're very piecemeal too in other cities. Smoke centers for sure. Yeah. So air cooling centers, as well as clean air centers. Those are some things that resilience hubs could do. And pass out in 95 Mass. What about schools? Yes. Yes, and to schools. I'm actually working on a report. Schools as resilience hubs. Schools should be places where kids actually have that there is AC, for example, in the school, and they have, shade trees, etc. They should be that living learning demonstration for resilience. But when it comes to the public coming in for the school as a resilience hub, that's a little more challenging. Some when there's a catastrophic emergency, sometimes schools do serve that function. But on the day-to-day, sometimes it's not as wouldn't make as much sense if the general public wants to come into the school. But some cities are using schools, senior centers, convention spaces, all of that. Yes, any site that the community knows and trusts. Place of worship are good ones too. Next slide. So is there a next slide after that?
I think
Of
it's just
yours? I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. I thought there was but anyway, one thing that we're doing this summer is launching a summer of resilience where we're asking sites, we're asking neighborhoods just to think about a small thing that they can do to build resilience and start that journey to becoming a resilience hub or a resilience neighborhood, especially given the pending, super El Nino, and we know the food crisis, food system starting to unravel. So we'll be having information on our website, having a fun, call to action to help fund, especially some resilience hubs, things like that. And Ashley or Whitney, do you want to go into the resilience potluck and that intersection with and also if any other questions?
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, we have time for questions for sure. Does anybody have any about or know of any work that's happening locally where you are related to resilience that you've been, aware of or part of? Yeah, Wendy.
I'm just curious about the kind of overlap with the Make Polluters Pay bill and how much communication there's been between the authors or future authors of the bill and the people promoting resilience hubs.
That's a really good question. I did go to that Make Polluters Pay potluck and tried to advocate for resilience as being a part of that bill. I think that would be amazing if there like specific language around that. And one thing I always note with funding for grassroots efforts is that oftentimes these organizations and these sites don't get that government funding because it's just too challenging to get it. And so I would love to see the Make Polluters Pay have a sort of a separate pot of money for like a community foundation to then redistribute for these grassroots organizations. And I don't know that that's part of that bill yet, but I think that would be a really great way to immediately support grassroots community resilience programs.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of adaptation overlap. Yeah, Whitney.
Yeah, I just have a question slash comment. So, as you know, Susan, I live in Pinole, which is a city of around 20,000 people or so. I'm not sure the status of the city with regard to like moving towards a resilience hub, but what I'm really interested in is kind of more block by block neighborhood specific organizing, where it's kind of like applying the framework of what you're talking about, but maybe more street or like localized neighborhood specific. So I'd be interested in being more resourced and kind of understanding what that can look like in terms of the asset mapping and whatnot. So
Yeah, no, that's a great question and lots of overlap between neighborhood groups and then the resilience hubs. The neighborhoods being able to do that asset mapping, being able to understand which of the neighbors are actually are vulnerable and needing support. So a lot of those tools we'll be putting on our website and pending funding we'll be hosting some specific trainings for neighborhood groups, and neighborhood groups could be using the resilience hubs for their community meetings, for example, or telling neighbors, hey, you don't have funding for, you're not able to buy emergency supplies, but your resilience hub has them. So there's a lot of overlap with that. Key components of services. Yes, we skipped over that slide, but there are 5 different components. a key one is off-grid power. That's a really key one. And then like the operations of like staff that are supporting it. And the community spaces I mentioned at the site. Shade. Yeah, key components.
So the off-grid power, that basically means microgrids.
This ideally the solar with the battery backup.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some of the sites have generators. You know, if that's what they have right now, that's what they've got.
Right.
Yeah. And battery backup can be super expensive. So oftentimes there's just a part of the building that is off grid. It's not the entire building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess, Howard, I've had that question too. So, in other things that I've seen, like, distribution points for food, water, medicine, supplies, clean air during smoke
Right.
events, shelter, like
Right.
hurricane type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were
Yeah,
there?
there's a lot of overlap with like a Red Cross. The Red Cross having, they have their emergency shelters. But we're not saying Resilience Hub should be those shelters. A shelter could be somewhere else. Or it could be if they have the capacity. They have to have cots, food, definitely extra water. Yes. Very pivotal. Yeah, so supplies are really important. I am working with a cohort to look at healthcare clinics as resilience hubs. So this is a conversation that is happening. And also looking at hospitals and how hospitals can support resilience hubs, not just the healthcare clinics, but others. And we're starting to work on donations from hospitals to resilience hubs, and that's how they can be of support in regards to donations. And
Oh,
so,
we should talk more about that.
yeah,
I'm gonna write that down. And then,
that's through healthcare without harm.
okay, cool. And then Yolanda had a good question too. Like, is there a website you would recommend, Susan, to find resilience hubs in your community?
Yeah, so Collective Resilience has some information. We're sort of revamping it now. It'll have more information. There's also resilience hubs. And there's a couple websites I'll put into the chat. So it's hard for me to do everything at once. But okay, here's one. I'll put my website in, and then this is one. And then I really like Hawaii's Resilience Hub program as well. But yeah, there's a couple of websites.
And thank you, Yolanda, for asking that question, because we'll put those websites in our primer that we're creating for, to kind of support this conversation in the potlucks that we'll talk about shortly. And then Margie, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the neighborhood organization. We did that after the 89 earthquake. We organized our street, and we mapped everybody who lived there, what pets were there, what who was vulnerable, who was aged, who should we check on. So we did that kind of mapping, and had a roster of everybody's contact information. So I'm wondering, I mean, you need to educate the people in the community how to be resilient and how to connect to each other. And so it's a real educational outreach, I would think.
Yeah.
And then I would need to learn about, how can I use my EV vehicle for battery backup for electricity, right? How do you do that?
Yeah, you do have to buy a specific charger for that. I think it's about $4,000.
It's a backup battery pack or something?
You can do it. It's possible, but you need the plug. Has anybody done that? Does anybody have that?
So that's the two-way charging, like EVs. There, there was a bill about last year to make EVs, all of them
Mhm.
had to be two-way chargers by some year, but some cars already are.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know the mechanics of it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
Good thing to
But
look up.
GM has a program for it, but not very many people have done it yet.
Mhm.
right.
And if you are medically vulnerable, you can get a free battery backup through PG&E if you live in Northern California. So it's a little hard to get, but you can do it. There's our community choice aggregation is spending, AVET Community Energy is spending $4 million to support battery backup for resilience hubs. So there are governmental agencies are really starting to support them. Wendy had a question. Are any in fire resistant buildings? Yes, of course, that is very would be very important. That can be costly, but that would be ideal. Underground bunkers. I think
Oh
the
God.
idea that this is public, this is community. And when I think about underground bumpers, I think of people who have a lot of money and but I don't know, are there any public underground bunkers?
I don't think
I don't
so.
think so.
Yeah,
This
there's
is,
something inherently exclusive about that.
I think, yeah, I think the idea of community resilience is that it's more about sharing. And when you think about underground bunkers with, billionaires who are building like them big time, that's not the sharing piece. Um, yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? These are all great. I'm definitely learning from everybody's. Alex, do you know of any in the Central Valley? Any hubs or groups doing resilience work?
Ask your question again.
Do you know of any groups in the Central Valley that are doing resilience work or any resilience hubs nearby?
I don't know of any group
Your audio is kind of
like
funky.
this. I do know that
Alex,
if it's funky, I can't help.
try going off video. Sometimes that helps with the bandwidth.
So put your comment in
Yeah,
the chat, maybe.
I always turn my video off when my Wi-Fi is weird. You want to try again, Alex?
Yeah, can you hear me any
Yeah,
better?
that's better. Yeah.
Hear me any better? Okay. Yeah, I don't know any groups doing it like this, but I do know that cities, um, health departments, the air district, uh, are are doing some things like this. Uh, the air district in particular, because of the wildfire smoke issue and air quality, has partnered with community organizations to be certain that they're to look for locations for air filtration for communities in the event, as well as helping individuals get air filters. They've got grant
Mhm.
programs so individuals can get support and also
Yeah, that's a good point.
videos on do-it-yourself air filters. Uh, so they're I guess there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there. Obviously, a lot more needs to be done, and this discussion stimulates for me next Tuesday and ask some questions
Right.
because I know the school district has electrified their buses. Uh, and I think they've done that in a very forward-thinking way. I would suspect that you can get electricity from them in an emergency.
Yeah.
I know the library has a solar EV charger that specifically people can charge from. One of their thinking, so kids wouldn't vandalize it, people can plug their USBs into it.
Good. You got to make it meet
So
people's needs. Yeah,
it's a community service, right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
go ahead.
electric buses is an emerging field too, using them for in the case of emergency for electricity. I also want to note one thing I did not talk about was that resilience hubs are community driven. And so whatever the community wants and needs, like that's more centered as opposed to the city saying, you need this, you need that. And a lot of sites that are private saying that we're going to be a resilience hub in this way. I think that's really important. And also to Howard's point of coordinating the resources and learning from each other is a key part of it. And that's a piece I think really needs some cultivation, is that the network piece and sharing, being more coordinator and collaborating.
Back to the point about Margie in '89 and the earthquake and like neighborhood mapping, Susan. So it's made me think, just mapping what the needs of the community are and then where the resources are makes me think of the app Waze. That's like a crowdsourced map where you can put if there's accidents or whatever. Is there something like that for resiliency and resources and needs, or what's like the best way to map?
Well, I was just I had been working with some interns on a resilience map, and we were using Google Maps, super easy. But there's like GIS mapping. There's so many different ones. I really want to. I'd love to pilot test that with a community. That's something we want to be doing this summer. There's also analog maps, drawing on it, but yeah, it's a. We'd love to have an app too for neighborhoods. Been thinking about that, like, oh, I have this, I want that. Oh, there's a babysitting need, there's this, or, not just emergencies. So that needs to be invented by a very pretty savvy tech person. It might be invented already.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
including things like who has solar battery backup. And part of this is like the getting to know your neighbors too, so trusting them, so that you know who to go to in an emergency.
but it's not like there's some widely used, agreed upon, crowdsourced map yet.
I wish there is
That
not. No,
that seems like a Silicon Valley
I know
opportunity
it's
for
really
good.
I've asked this question so many times and nobody has that yet. There are a couple that are kind of sort of that way, but not. Oh, we are using a site called Hilo, which is great for like talking with each other, and they have maps. So that and they're run by amazing people, friends of mine. So Hilo is a possibility. Has anybody heard of Hilo?
Yeah, I have for sure. I haven't used it, but I came across it like pre-COVID.
I think next door is too public. We're looking at more like kind of private neighborhood, but I don't know, sort of a both and. Next door has, I think if you didn't have all the crazy comments, next door would be great. So maybe there could be a resilience like piece of it. But yeah, using what people have, a lot of people use Signal, they use WhatsApp or, existing, but yeah, if we had a sort of an all-in-one, that would be amazing.
And Howard, did you say there was something like, were you referring to a map related to the Palisades LA fires?
No, it was an app. It was on, I think, PBS NewsHour at the time where people had some developed an app to let people know what the activity of the fire was doing and what areas to evacuate from because the public information wasn't adequate. And that certainly came out in an earlier problem in Lahaina in Maui with the fires, and the alert system had failed. Um, so these guys had developed this app, and I don't know what it was called, but I thought it was very clever because it really gave people a chance to get real-time information about the dangers.
There's some watch duty, maybe. Sounds like that might have been what it was called. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, right? Because if all the alert systems rely on Wi-Fi and phones and power's out, then what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you need the analog and the digital.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
not an easy task.
Yeah, the communication is really key.
Right.
And there are some resilience hubs that have gotten radios and are trained in like ham radio, so or have walkie-talkies. So that is a key piece of
Okay, so what is ham radio?
what is a ham radio. Let's see, how do I
When I
explain
looked
this?
that up, it just said like amateur radio. Is that what
What's
that
that?
means? When I looked it up a while ago, it said amateur radio.
Right, amateur.
It,
I'm
it
pretty sure.
uses a different wavelength than like, commercial radio. And it's been around for 100 years.
So you have to have a license, but you can, but then you can communicate across town without relying on cell towers or the internet.
So one of my daughters is 8, and we just finished Harry Potter. And literally, there's kind of an allusion to ham radio in Harry Potter when Voldemort is rising to power. And that's how the good side fights back through these radio. So that's my only connection. But I've heard they used it in World War II also.
Learning from New Orleans would be interesting. Yes. I was also in Asheville, North Carolina, right after the hurricane, Helene. And I was so inspired by all the amazing mutual aid that was happening, and just like automatically neighbors working together, sharing resources. They didn't have power for a while. They didn't have water for a while. But it had really that spirit, that history of community organizing. So they were able to really pull together quite easily to be of support with each other and work, with the tool lending, the fix-it clinics, the tool lending libraries, and pop-up resilience hubs, and support each other. So that spirit of sharing is really, really key. And how can we do that all the time and be proactive rather than reactive when there's a disaster?
I think on that point, Susan, one of the things I love about what I've learned from you is that there's community, like resilience hubs, for instance, can save lives during disaster, but there's also this opportunity to create more community fabric, weave it back together by like ham radio workshops. I mean, just like learning together, I think is such an exciting opportunity because so many people feel alone and alienated, and like we're just consumers. We don't actually do anything together. It's just, and this has such a possibility of recreating the actual community,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it depends on who you're talking to. What's the benefit of what do you start with? Like for me, that community piece is actually as important or even more important than emergency preparedness. There's an epidemic of loneliness. People are so polarized. How can we build community? And you can build community as you're building resilience, getting to know people and working on that common ground, that common solution, the solutions together. of taking care of each other. And you might not have a lot in common, but you can have something in common and start from there.
Yeah. This is my last thing, but my 94-year-old grandpa was just visiting, and he was telling stories of when he was like 10, planting victory gardens and doing scrap drives where they, like, little kids were, collecting scrap for making weapons to defeat Hitler. Like that kind of collective identity, it only is in long ago stories for me, but I think the resilience kind of has that capacity again to bring it back.
100%.
Yeah.
Before we start turning on each other, we want to build that community. And
Yes.
to Wendy's point of like holding each other accountable, like you having your neighbor say to you, okay, can you just please put that bleach in your dropper bottle? hold you accountable for that. So yeah, that's really key. And food is a great resilience builder. It really brings people together, the potlucks and growing food together, sharing it, etc.
On cue to the food,
And
right?
with that,
Because getting together with food is usually fun. So first, thank you so much, Susan, for giving us this kind of, framework and the work you're doing. And we're excited to, figure out how to work together more. So thank you. And where we want to take this is bringing this conversation literally into our neighborhoods this summer in the form of a potluck. And last year, Climate Health Now hosted potlucks, and we talked about if we had a polluter pay bill that went forward and we had the $150 billion, how would we want to spend it in our neighborhoods, in our cities, in our regions? And those conversations were really meaningful. The bill didn't pass, those funds did not manifest, but we want to build on that by getting together again and having meaningful conversations about what matters to us. So the theme of our potlucks this summer is about resilience, and we're hoping that maybe all of you or some would consider hosting a potluck in a park near your house, in your backyard. I've done in the park a couple times, and it's really fun. And so these are some pictures of the potlucks we had last year. We had them in, let's see, San Francisco, Santa Monica, Berkeley, Fremont, the East Bay Area. This was in Tiburon and Marin. This was in Loma Linda. Yeah, so they were all over, and they were really cool, and we were, having some good food, being outside, very family friendly, and we're going to do this again. So we've learned a lot from kind of hosting these, and we have a toolkit to make it as easy as possible. But what we're wondering is if you, Alex and Howard and Wendy and Margie and Yolanda, Aaron, if you would consider joining us by saying, okay, I'll host one at X Park this summer. Our goal is to have at least 10, maybe 15 would be cool. And we have, we started saying we have nearly 1,000 members. So if you said, Yolanda, where do you live? I'm going to call you, just as an example. No pressure, though.
I was just walking my butt over to my computer so I could better participate. Okay, where do I live? I'm in Oakland.
Oh,
And
nice.
that's actually why I asked the question about looking for resilience hubs, because I imagine there are people who are doing this already and who are smarter than me about it. And I'd be hesitant to host something where there are experts who actually could do it better.
Yeah, so we appreciate experts, but we don't need experts in this. This is really about just being willing to gather people to get to know each other. And it's not an expert thing, but we have a primer that we've put together that's kind of like a conversation starter. So yeah, we have like the flow, the rough idea of the potluck is we get together, mix and mingle. We have this two-page document that's kind of about resilience, what it means, what it could, like ways that we could start building resilience. And then it's really a conversation. So it's really just kind of having people say like, and we have a scenario. So it's October 1st, there's a heat wave, day 4, power shutoffs because of high wind. You know, what would we need as a community if we didn't have the grid and it was hot and we had smoke? You know, like not super outlandish, but the idea is just to get people's wheels turning together, and come up with, you know, kind of start thinking like what's one step we could take out of this gathering that would move us towards being more resilient and safe and connected as a community. So we have this toolkit, and we're hoping, you know, that some of you will say, yeah, I'll host a potluck. We have like a spreadsheet for people to, you know, bring food to the potluck to make it really easy. So it's just kind of as plug and play as possible. And Yolanda, I'm in Berkeley, you're in Oakland. I mean, Susan's in Berkeley, so this could also just be kind of like an East Bay thing, if that makes it feel more appealing. Alex, you're gonna have to be the the leader in Fowler, I think, probably. But yeah, this is the idea, is to get a conversation going. And then also, Yolanda, to your point, of, you know, what groups are working on resilience around, like in different communities, that potentially we could invite people who are working on resilience to come to the potlucks. That's kind of next level, but that's an opportunity. The idea is to, you know, have a meaningful gathering so everybody can kind of make it theirs. And if you want to invite somebody local who's doing work, that would be really great too. But we're just trying to get the kind of seeds planted to anchor a potluck, and then it can kind of grow according to the area and what people's interests are. So does the general idea, oh yeah, here it is. So this is the rough outline of a potluck. The goal is to build an understanding of what local community resilience looks like, to get to know each other, to have fun, central. And the rough idea, you know, maybe an hour and a half or two, talk about the climate resilience framework, intros, the scenario discussion, and then taking action together. And one of the thoughts that we have for what action people could take next is we're thinking about maybe offering like a training on how to talk about and how to counsel patients and community members about extreme heat and how to stay safe in extreme heat, that people could kind of sign up for at the end of the potluck. So I'll stop here. Does anybody have any questions about the potlucks, or does anybody feel like, oh my gosh, I want to do that this July, or any other questions?
What is the time frame? Oh, now in September, it's right there. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of summer. You know, last year we had one in October, which was cool, and we counted it, but kind of summer-ish, maybe October. Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna say maybe if Amanda or Margie want to share about their experience hosting last year briefly. Maybe Amanda, do you want to share about hosting in Santa Monica?
Yes. Can you hear and see me? Sorry, running between clinics and stuff. Yeah, it was so fun. And I totally get the hesitation about not being an expert. Like we had a lot of, it was a potluck to talk about like where we would put funds if we were to get some of the money from the polluters paid bill, if that were to pass, and like what would the community envision that a future could look like with that. And a lot of the solutions were like renewable energy. And I know very little about that, but it was just sparking conversation and ideas to really come together to create community, to see who we can count on, who has expertise in what, if something were to happen, and then you could reach out to them. We had food that was amazing. We got it from some vendors who didn't feel comfortable selling their food because of the ice stuff. So it can be a very intersectional community gathering too. And we had like 15 to 20 people in a park, and it was just like a beautiful conversation starter. And we've had like those relationships have been ongoing since then. So yeah, excited to host one this summer too.
So we had one in San Francisco, and to your point, Yolanda, we invited some local leaders, administrators, city administrators. Actually, we invited the department head of the Department of the Environment, to, what you call it, Jew, and also Supervisor Mandelman came. We invited Daniel Lurie, but he didn't come. But we thought, well, let's include the people who are making these decisions in this conversation. So it was really nice. It was really great to have this exchange with the people who are making those decisions and would be thinking about what we would use the money for. So it was really fun.
Erin, where you may have shared this, but where do you live?
Well, I live in North Oakland, but I'm about to make a big move to Strawberry Creek Lodge in West Central Berkeley.
Ah, you'll be a neighbor. I'm like half a mile west.
Okay.
Cool, cool,
And Erin and I have known each other for many years.
cool. So I can see the probability of an East Bay potluck in the works.
Totally.
Does anybody want to host one this summer with a lot of support?
Hmm. Do you have a time? There was a limit. You wanted to have them all by a certain time last time. Is there any like timetable to this?
Yeah, summer, maybe before October 1st-ish, but it's approximate because
Yeah.
summer's very full. Yeah, but between now and September or so, life permitting.
Right.
Yeah.
I would love to help with one. And if people will adopt my kittens, then I'll host.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's cool. Help is great. Partner, many hands make it, lighter. So Howard, you said you'll explore it with your Rotary group. Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. Amanda's in. Good. We said maybe August 22nd, I think, might work for Amanda. Wendy's in to collaborate. Yeah.
I'll consider it. I just got so much going on. It's
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. So if you want to express interest, and then we can follow up with you if you have any like hesitations, like, oh, I hate public speaking or whatever your thing is, like we can definitely make it work. And we have a lot of other members who, couldn't necessarily make this meeting. So last year we had a couple of people co-host, which I think is a fun way to go about it, and maybe makes it less of a heavy lift for anybody. But we have like this kind of flow for the event. We have like the spreadsheet for people to sign up to bring, so we have a lot to make it as easy as possible. It's really just saying I'll host on this day in this place, and then we help with recruiting. You're definitely welcome to invite whoever you want to come too. But yeah, and we all need, it's really, every time I'm in person with people who kind of have similar values, it's usually a really meaningful, fun thing. So, and a cool way to get to know your neighbors, and it might save somebody's life in your neighborhood. You never know. So that could be important. But that's the form. Thank you, Whitney, for dropping it in there. And we'd love to hear from you and to have some meaningful gatherings. And then we're gonna finish up with some upcoming events that we're hosting. So tomorrow, our Climate Health Matters Culture Club, which kind of brings in the, pop culture kind of story, interesting stuff going on team that in Climate Health Now, they're hosting a viewing and a discussion of Project Drawdown's Climate Solutions 101 series, which should be really awesome. So if you want to join that, we could put the link in the follow-up email that you'll get probably this afternoon. Project Drawdown is this cool list. It's like 100 things that we need to do that could help turn around global warming. So it's a really awesome project. And then in a couple weeks, Tuesday, June 23rd, we are hosting a conversation with one of the organizers from Our City, Our Power campaign, which is the growing movement for public power in San Francisco. And San Francisco already provides a lot of the electricity to public buildings, but they actually have proposed twice to PG&E to buy the grid from PG&E, the grid in San Francisco, from PG&E to municipalize, to make the electricity, the grid there public, which is, I think, really awesome. It's been like done perhaps one other time in the country. So a really meaningful campaign, actually, that we learned about through the potluck that Margie and Robin hosted last summer. So if you want to join to learn about public power, the electrical power and the political power, that would be great. And then the last thing, this fall, from September 10th to November 19th, on Thursdays, we are offering a training that is about storytelling for health advocacy. And it offers continuing medical education, continuing nursing education, and then interprofessional, ongoing education. And it's about how to tell the story of why you care, what you care about, in a way that inspires other people to work with you. So it's a leadership practice called public narrative, kind of in the Marshall Gans organizing tradition. And yeah, it should be really fun. It's a commitment, of a couple months, but very meaningful. So if that interests you, let us know. And that's all we got. So thank you, everybody, for joining, sharing your hour with us. And we'd love to get feedback if you have any about what could have gone better, what you would have liked to have more or less of. And I think that's it. So thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. And let us know about the potlucks you're inspired to host. And thank you, Susan, for